Okay, so greetings everybody, and thank you, Professor Shin, Professor Anshin, Professor Wu, Professor David Kim, and Dr. Lee, and everybody else in the Korean Association of New Religions. 안녕하세요. And I'm going to talk today from the macro, big picture point of view. And I'm really interested in how scholars categorize these new forms of religiosity. And if there's one slide, I'll go through a lot of slides, but we don't have to read everything. I will point out the important stuff, okay? So don't worry too much. But my main topic is going to be something we call quasi-religions. And I will explain what I mean by quasi-religions. Can you all? Let me see, it's not shifting. So first topic is Maoism. And what is Maoism all about? Is that a quasi-religion? Well, in 1974, right after Nixon went to China, Joseph Kitagawa, who is a very famous Harvard scholar, wrote an article about Maoism as a quasi-religion. And he says, why not? Because Mao saw himself as a redeemer. And so you could say this is a kind of political religion that uses power to elevate and displace traditional religion. That was what Kitagawa said. And he also created new rituals. Okay, so unfortunately, Kitagawa's thesis was based on Mao's writings only, all of his communist writings. And he was a prolific writer. So the writing said he wanted to defeat feudalism and imperialism, to replace the religion of familyism. And Kitagawa said this is in line with Chinese humanistic religious culture, and where the leader gets the mandate from heaven and people pay homage to the leader. Unfortunately, Mao was out before long and nobody really does this. So is Maoism a quasi-religion? I think you can say it is, but it's not because of what Kitagawa said. It's because people, when you go to China, you see them with Mao pictures, and you see them making pilgrimages to Mao's hometown. So in that sense, it is a quasi-religion. So quasi, let's go to this category. Quasi means like, similar. So what I'm talking about are things that are similar to religion, but not exactly the same. You know, it smells like religion, it looks like religion, it feels like religion, but, you know, it's missing something. It's not exactly religion. That's quasi. Okay, so this first article, and I'm going to go through several of these. Don't feel like you have to read all of this. I'll just take you through the important ones. So this article by Lois Lee talks about ontological positions versus non-religion. Three ontological positions: there's religious, there's secular, there's atheism, and then non-religion. What is in non-religion? Atheism is there too, agnosticism, secular humanism, irreligion, anti-clericism, etc. What is secular? Baseball, shopping, social clubs, work, anything that is 100% not religion. And in religion, you have new religious movements, established religions. Okay, I'm not very happy with this, so I changed it to add a new category of quasi-religions. Here are the examples: New Age, holistic health, Alcoholics Anonymous, witchcraft, ITOs, which means individual transformation organizations, UFOs, yoga, etc. But this is still very messy. So I changed it again, where we have on the right, religious worldview, on the left, this worldview, or you could say secular worldviews. So why do I put atheism, agnosticism, anti-religion in religious point of view? It's because they're still talking about religion. Everything is oriented towards this big category, religion, okay? Only when you get on the left side, you get this worldly things like social clubs, art, maybe, baseball, etc., that you have things that have nothing to do with religion. In the middle, are the quasi-religions. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from. In other words, you have two worldviews, and they come together. Where they overlap is quasi. Now, you can take this a little bit further and talk about para-religions too. But I don't think we need to do that. Let's just talk about quasi-religion. Para means alongside, so it's even less religious. But let's go to some examples. I think you'll find that more fun. But before I get that, let me unpack a little bit more. I'm not going to talk about the nuns too much because I know Dr. Wu will talk about the nuns. But I just want to say I don't think the nuns are really a quasi-religion. It's an analytical category. Okay. And I'm not going to talk about. I talked in the paper about this, but I'm going to move on. So let's unpack a little bit more this category of quasi. Okay, quasi means not 100% like a quasi-war, a quasi-world like the Matrix. It's not really the world, right? But it feels like it. Okay, why are people joining quasi-religions? One explanation, people want to be individuals. They don't want to be treated like sheep. Another, in the same vein, Emerson, American writer, said, be a mystic in your way, not in someone else's way. Do your own thing. It sounds very hippie, right? Another explanation is it's about consumerism. So you consume religion just like you consume gasoline or rice. And then these ideas were very popular in the 90s because we talked about globalization then, right? But I think I'm going to skip this and go to what I think is the most interesting explanation, which is Mark Taylor. Mark Taylor, famous philosopher, he wrote a lot about what it means to be living in a secular world. And he says we moved from an age of mobility, which means industrialization, to an age of the authenticity, the individual. And in the future, religions will focus on each individual. And religion will still survive, but it will be one option only. What's behind this is romanticism, the idea that we value insight and feeling, but not doctrine, not orthodoxy. Okay. This second to the last line. My church speaks to me. So when I join a church, I must feel something when I go there. It must speak to me. If it doesn't, I will go to another church, right? I'll leave. So Taylor said we will have many places, many spaces where we find this kind of individualism, we express this kind of individualism. Cyberspace, fan space, spiritual space. Okay. Will religion disappear? He says no, because people will always be unhappy, dissatisfied with whatever is the current moral order, socialism, capitalism, whatever. People will not be 100% happy with that. Okay, examples. Here are some famous examples. I'm sure you know all about these, but these are not the ones I want to talk about. I want to talk about 6, if we have enough time, very interesting examples, and I'm trying to illustrate differences. Okay, so what I'm talking about is a spectrum, and you can put each quasi-religion somewhere on the spectrum. To the right of the spectrum is religion. To the left is otherworldly. And so you can see the examples I put here. Maybe you don't agree with where I put this. Maybe transhumanism should be on the left, or shamanism should be on the right. That's fine, because I'm trying to get discussion and to get everybody to think about how we make categories. Okay, so let's move to the 6 categories. First one is the most boring, secular humanism. However, I think it's everywhere, and it really is the way we think. So secular humanism has been around only from 1943. Humanism was around before, but it was Christian humanism, Jewish humanism. Secular humanism only started to be talked about in the 1940s. And the World Humanist Congress started in 1952. And humanism is recognized as a religion in America. And a lot of marriages are under humanism. So some people say Humanism is just Christianity, but a watered down version, a weak version of Christianity. That's all I want to say about this. But this is a map that the Humanist Society put out about discrimination against non-religion. You can see the darker countries have more discrimination, right? What does this look like? This looks exactly like the map of discrimination against religions, right? So really what they're doing is admitting that secular humanism is another form of belief. It's a belief system. Okay, now, second example, I'm going to introduce you to something you don't know anything about. BTS. Okay, I'm sure that nobody's heard of this, right? Okay, so I'm not going to tell you about BTS because you know, okay? But I will just go through and look at the factors that maybe make this a quasi-relation or religion, okay? So they're super powerful, super popular. They're smart in the way they use media and online media. This song, Butter, you can see here near the bottom, had the most number of YouTube views in history when it came out. Okay, it's part of Hanyu phenomenon, right? Where popular culture, but that's not the only explanation. Okay, first of all, it's a fan club. So what? There's been many fan clubs, right? But you have the army. The BTS army is really special. Okay, of course, when you join, you get many benefits. You get a ring with all their names and their et cetera, et cetera. You have logos, and does everybody know what the logo means? The logo is two doors, right? And the idea is if you open one door, BTS opens one door, what's standing behind the other door? The army. So the army is everywhere. It's always supporting it emotionally and spiritually. So this is the key. So Hanyu is Hanryu is one explanation. But some people also say BTS songs have very deep themes, right? They talked about Jungian psychology, right, in their last album. The army is devoted. People make pilgrimage in fan groups. Social media spreads it out. And in a very important article, Chang and Park say it's a kind of neo-tribalism. So very quickly, neo-tribalism says that we seek warmth. We want the warmth of being a group. So intimacy, that's the key behind it. So I'm going to stop here talking about BTS to move on, but is it a quasi-religion? And I would say yes, it's got some aspects, especially the army, of deep devotion and worship. Okay, let's go to another form of worship, Bitcoin. Is this a quasi-religion? Okay, you could say it's a form of perfect money, and money is kind of a tool, a technology that's similar to religion. A lot of people have said that in the past. And Bitcoin is not subject to any government, right? So it's a perfect money, George Simmel said. But it's also a way of seeing the world. And it was supposed to have been invented by this guy, Satoshi Nakamoto. And here's a picture of a guy whose name is Satoshi Nakamoto. He lives in LA. He says, it's not me, I didn't do it. And he said, I'll prove it. If you look in my bank account, I don't have any money. So obviously, I didn't invent Bitcoin. Okay, but I think what's behind the power of Bitcoin is not this money side, it's the blockchain. It's the technology that allows Bitcoin to work. So the real worship is of the blockchain technology. Blockchain is a kind of networking, distributed network, and it shows deep distrust. Deep distrust of what? Distrust of institutions, like this government, this bank, that bank, right? We don't trust them, so we need a blockchain system so we can function without these institutions. Here's an example. This climate change coalition started during the Paris climate talks, 2017, and they said in their charter, we want to advance digital ledger technology, blockchain type things. Now, this shows that this kind of technology can be used by those institutions like the UN too. So it's a two-edged sword. And I think it shows a lot of faith in this technology that is probably displaced. So this brings up the idea of technology and how much faith we can have in technology. Okay, let me go to another very obvious example, environmentalism. Here I list a couple of the famous books in environmentalism. You've all heard of Al Gore. The main point is that environmentalism is a new moral code that a lot of people follow. And this guy, Michael Crichton, was a famous author. He talked about this as a religion. Okay, I'm not going to read this, but he said it's Garden of Eden, and we've now fallen out. We're sinners, and we pollute, so we're sinners, basically. The only salvation is environmentalism. So it sounds very, in this explanation, very religious-like. And you have different terms for radical environmentalism, religious environmentalism, carbon fundamentalism, and the one I like, carbon Calvinism. Okay, so is this a quasi-religion? I think yes. It's a belief system that people are devoted to. Okay, here's a really juicy one. NXIVM. You've probably read about this. Founded in 1998 as a personal development company. They taught executives, very expensive. It was labeled a cult a long time ago. It had its own news organization called the Knife of Aristotle. It had an inner organization with only women, and the leaders of the group were arrested and charged, and they're in jail. Okay, so here you have a sex cult, evil cult, classic. So in all the reporting on this group, NXIVM is called a cult. Here are the people, and you may recognize some TV stars, movie stars. The one woman on the right is Grace Park, Korean heritage. She wasn't one of the leaders, but all three of these people, these stars, were involved. Okay, this guy was able to attract. I think the best way to understand NXIVM is to compare with Scientology, which I think most people are familiar with. So let's look at a couple of aspects. Charismatic founder, yes. So L. Ron Hubbard was charismatic. This guy, Keith Raniere, charismatic. Reinventive institution. It's another way of saying individual transformation organization. Yes, that was the purpose, is to change yourself. Inner organization, yes. D-Org, Scientology, and DOS in NXIVM. Was it a religious organization? No. NXIVM was not. It was a business. Scientology, yes. What is it? Was it litigious? Did it take people to court? Yes. Every day it's in court with lawyers. Okay. Now, the important thing is the religious exception. Scientology was registered as religion. And everywhere they went, they said we're a religion. NXIVM did not. NXIVM founder is in jail. Okay, so good lesson. Okay, what's interesting, and I'm sorry you can't read all this, but these kind of charts are just amazing. And I'll just talk a little bit about this. It shows the influence of NXIVM teaching, okay? So on the upper right, everything is Scientology, okay? So we know what's in that. But you also have Freemasonry, Crowley, which is magic, Blavatsky, Theosophy, George Steiner, Erhard, ESP, Tony Robbins, Ayn Rand, Judo, and multi-level marketing. So let me just focus on three of these. ESP, Tony Robbins, multi-level marketing. ESP and Tony Robbins are examples of the training industry. And how big is the training industry? You can see the number, $333 billion. It's huge, right? Why? Because all of these tech companies, all the medical companies need training. So here is the founder of NXIVM giving some training. Okay, but also they used multi-level marketing. And you can see the most famous examples are Nu Skin and Amway, but there are several in Korea, and I'm sure you know about them. In China, multi-level marketing companies were banned. They're illegal now because they were so religious. People got so religiously involved. So that was the tool they used to grow. And I just want to ask, is this a quasi-religion? I think it's obvious, yes. Unfortunately, he didn't register as a religion, so he's in jail for 120 years, by the way. Last one, transhumanism. You've heard about this. Is this in Korea? Absolutely. Okay, these ideas are all over the world. Okay, and here's a quote, it's a new faith, it's a new religion. It's not based on a relationship with God, it's based on belief in possibility of immortality. How? Technology. So it's really faith in technology. Here's what's going to happen. Okay, so we start on the left, we start human. Then here we are now, I think we're kind of human. Maybe we have some transplants. Once we're transhuman, in about 30 years, we will have some machines inside our brains or something. Then we will not be human, we'll be post-human. And then finally, the criticism is we think we will become God. So this is what people are critical about, okay? What's next? If we continue, well, it's very possible the humans will, I don't know, merge with machines somehow. Maybe not that way. Okay, two routes of transhumanism, the Russian route and the Silicon Valley route. The Russian route goes back to Nicholas Fyodorov, who was a mystic. He had this one idea, which was amazing. He said, our job as humans now is to make everybody who ever lived, who died, come back to life. How do we do that? Technology. And at that time, Russia was quite advanced in biotech, but not that advanced. So he was a mystic and he saw this possibility. So why do we need the Russian space program? Because too many people, everybody comes back to life. What are you going to do with all the people? You have to send them to the other planets. So that was a lot of the scientists in the Russian space program were followers of this guy. So this is real. Okay. Second route, Silicon Valley. Some names here you probably have heard of. The singularity is where computers, the point at which computers exceed our intelligence, our general intelligence. And the forecast, it could be 2042, could be 2047. I'm guessing by 2050, computers will be smarter than us, right? They will be super intelligent. And some people say this will bring about ecological harmony. So the ecological problem will be solved. Okay, but other people say we're playing God. We don't realize what it means to be human. And this goes against religion's goal. One of the functions of religion is to prepare people for death. Okay, and then other people say this is just a scam. It's all about capitalism. Elon Musk wants to sell more cars. Okay, I don't know. Okay, is this a quasi-religion? Absolutely, because it's very strong belief. You could say it's a movement too, and I've already written about 6 different new religions that have come out of this. Okay, so the question is, who are we? Okay, now let me look at all the factors in quasi-religions. Okay, with secular humanism, it's values only, no religion. With BTS, it's faith and a search for meaning. With Bitcoin, it's distrust of institutions, faith in networks. Environmentalism, you have some apocalypticism, which I didn't talk about. You have distrust of institutions. And with Indexian, we have personal magnetism, transhumanism, faith in technology, okay? Here I've spread all these out, and the most common ones, okay, you can see, are the ones that I circled in red. I think if I had a forecast, these factors will become more and more important with new spirituality, new religions, quasi-religions that come up in the future. I don't think values are going to be that important. I don't think apocalyptic thinking will be that important. Maybe leaders will be important, but maybe not. So that's just a way to sum up these 6 different groups. Final point, and I'll wrap up. So technology is something we really have to look at carefully. Humans have always had technology, but right now, I think we're in danger of being overcome by technology. That's the fear with transhumanism. Also, this idea, and I mentioned in the paper, of the social imaginary is a very powerful idea. So the point, I think, and I suspect, this is a mini theory, that certain ideas become so widely accepted, they go unconscious, and they don't need a structure like a religion or institution to promulgate. They're already widely accepted. So Christianity, Buddhism, environmentalism is the new one. I think all around the world, a lot of people believe in the basic value of environmentalism now, right? You don't get that much argument, only a few. And then this individual expressivism, the romantic spirit, that's also widely accepted, individualization, and secular humanism. Those values are already widely accepted. So my point is, you have a movement. From the movement, you have new religions that have structure, or they won't survive. But once they're successful, let's say like Christianity, they don't need a structure. The ideas are always out there. They're permanent. Okay, thank you very much. I enjoyed this, and I'm open to questions.